Now, it seemed to me just logic to try to bring the best in higher education within reach of people who felt that they could be advantaged by it. The Prime Minister made a bargain with me, and he kept it. I was Minister for the Arts, and he said, for God's sake, will you take on this university project? Because there was nobody in the department, none of the ministers, senior, nobody in the Treasury. Inside the cabinet, they either didn't understand what it was about, preoccupied with their own jobs, or were actively hostile. And I said, Harold, I'll take it on the same conditions as the arts, that you'll back me when I need money. Now, he never let me down.
I'm Lisa May Young. Welcome to Heather Stuart, Chief Executive of the Fife Cultural Trust on Fife. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, lovely to be here.
As Chief Executive of On Fife, you're the custodian of local culture. What is your experience as a Fifer of Jennie Lee?
That's a great question. Interestingly, one of the things I'm very conscious of is that I don't remember her being somebody that we learnt about at school, which I hope is one of the things that's starting to change. So I discovered Jennie really through my role in On Fife as the Chief Executive. And particularly, I was inspired to find out more about her because of the naming of our Jennie Lee Library in the Lochgelly Centre. And that happened just before I took up post. I came into the trust in 2012. So that was really my introduction to Jennie. And I had known about Jennie in the context of her arts and culture political role, but I had never really connected her locally before. And ever since then, I've just found her particularly inspirational, and I've become a little bit of a sort of avid Jennie researcher. And the more that I've looked into her, the clearer it is to me just how significant her achievements are, how big her legacy is. And I guess for me, I also feel I really can relate to her. You know, she's from round here, as they say, a bit like myself, from fairly humble beginnings, but like myself. And so for me, she really epitomises, you know, what you can achieve through hard work, dedication, and commitment. And, you know, gender aside, and arguably being a woman in her world was harder than it was for me, but it still had its challenges. And so, you know, I find that element of her just thriving in such a man's world particularly inspiring. So yes, just love her. Trailblazer. I've got some amazing favourite quotes that I use from her all of the time, and just really fascinated by her at all levels.
Jennie Lee's nephew, Vincent Stafford, gifted some of her papers to On Fife. Tell us about them, and do you have any particular favourites?
We're really lucky. We have a fair few things, which is a real privilege, and particularly for me, it's just great to know that these are in our care and in our collection. So what we've got is really documentation, which covers the period from around 1961 to 1986. Really interesting because it's that social history thing. It gives you a real insight into the person, because it is her personal correspondence, even around sort of financial issues and so on. So we have, for example, a copy of the probate of Nye Bevan, copies of the birth and marriage certificates, her original wedding band,
wow.
Details of their burial grounds, and sort of various registration certificates. And then we've got her diploma in education from Edinburgh Uni, and her honorary doctorate in laureation, and her honorary degree from the Open University, which is obviously particularly significant. So there's other tapes and videos and things, quite a lot still needs digitised. But in terms of my favourite, I suppose anything in an archive for me it's about something that's as personal as possible and tells the story. So I think it's always around the family documents and the photographs. And I think just the story of her life and death told through the various birth, marriage, death certificates, that kind of thing. You know, I think that really connects you back to people. But great, given her link to education, to have her various degrees and things as well. So, yeah.
Jennie was the first ever UK Minister for the Arts. She widened arts investment from the elite of London to Scotland, Wales and the regions of England. What has been the impact of that legacy for culture in Scotland?
it's the whole thing about Jennie, isn't it? It's the fact that she was the politician that she was at the time that she did it, and then to become the kind of first ever minister for the arts. She has undoubtedly had a major and long lasting impact. I mean, I think in terms of the things that stick with me about her legacy, she was above all human, I think, with all the sort of passions and imperfections that make us all human. So I adore her for that. She was authentic. She wanted to deliver meaningful change, but she was also really complex and full of contradictions, and she made some really interesting relationship choices, and I relate to all of that.
I think we all can.
So, and also, maybe ultimately, she didn't feel she had fulfilled her potential. You know, she sort of stepped back into the shadows to support Nye Bevan, which people forget, and she refreshed her own ambitions only after his death, and I find that really interesting. But the main thing is that she did that because most of what she achieved, she achieved after Nye passed away, and that's where the major and long-lasting impact has really come about, isn't it? So, you know, first ever Minister of the Arts. I mean, it's still that white paper, a policy for the arts, the first step. I mean, that was over 50 years ago now since the publication of that, wow. which is incredible in itself. And there hasn't been another one since, which kind of sums up Jennie, doesn't it? Hashtag one off. So, but also, yeah, the legacy. So the white paper argued that the arts needed to occupy a central place in British life and be part of everyday life for children and adults. And that, for me, is definitely a legacy that lives on, not just in Scotland, but right across the UK. And for Jennie, a lot of what she did was about accessibility, so tackling accessibility to the arts head on, believing that culture should be inclusive. And she challenged the need for arts to be embedded in the education system and to be valued as highly as any other industry. And talk about being before your time. I mean, the creative industries are worth more to Scotland than oil and gas. People forget about all of that. So she was right. And she felt it was really crucial that the population had equality of access to the arts, we know, wherever they lived, and that, you know, be supporting arts ventures, cultural ventures, as much as established institutions, and that participation was essential. And I never know whether to be depressed or impressed that these challenges are actually still very live challenges, all of them today. But there's no doubt her legacy, as she got it spot on, she was ahead of her time. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, I mean, in terms of arts and culture, definitely a trailblazer there, and her legacy is absolutely significant. For me to have that wrapped up in somebody who was just such an amazing person, you know, who was so passionate about what I'm passionate about is just great, you know, really amazing.
You've given talks on Jennie Lee, Heather. What is her legacy in Fife and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I probably touched on some of that. I mean, for me, it's three things really. I think these are probably the things that you could use different language, but I think most people would agree these are the things. Social justice made her tick. It was in her DNA, wasn't it? You know, the way that she was brought up, all of these independent kind of Labour Party speakers, you know, that were going through her house. I mean, she was an amazing orator, a compelling storyteller, and really a product of where she was brought up. She was determined that there would be that social justice. Education, what she did in terms of, again, it's about social justice, accessibility, making education for everyone available through her University of the Air, which became the Open University. 2.2 million people have achieved their learning goals through the Open University.
Amazing,
how incredible, eh? Yeah. So all of that came from her socialist course. So social justice, education probably go hand in hand. And yes, as we've been talking about the importance of the arts. I wish, though, I only do wish that we had done more. And I think we've got more to do to celebrate and mark that legacy, particularly here in Fife. And there is now a huge amount of community support to do that, in and around Lochgelly in particular. Really happy to support that. And of course, we've got Matthew Knight's play about her life, which I love. Really brings the young Jennie to life. And I love that whole internal battle with the potentially older and wiser Jennie. All of that to life, doesn't it? Yeah. So So yeah, I mean, I kind of hope that more time that passes, the more that we really appreciate what an amazing daughter of Fife she was and continues to be.
If Jennie was here, what would you say to her?
Oh, I'd love it if Jennie was here.
Oh, wouldn't we all?
I just think it would be a big thank you on all sorts of fronts. You know, it would be, I mean, firstly, I would say kind of thank you for the laugh. You know, one of my favourite stories about her is the whole thing about, you know, she's doing her maiden speech in the House of Commons, you know, and she was so irreverent, you know, so she's in there. She's not old enough to vote for herself. None of her peers were able to vote her in. She's the youngest ever kind of, you know, female MP, and she stands up and she accuses Winston Churchill of cant, corruption and incompetence. Ramsay MacDonald, who's the Labour leader then, was apparently mortified. I just love that, you know. There's all sorts of stories about that. So yes, thanks for that kind of humorous inspiration, and particularly for the opportunities that she really has created for so many people, and the role model I think that she has been and continues to be for people from perhaps more disadvantaged communities and backgrounds. She proves that, you know, you can achieve anything, and for women too, for everyone really. Thanks for being determined that arts and education should be for everyone, and for always wanting to do the right thing for the right reason. And yeah, P.S. sorry that we haven't always celebrated your amazing legacy. And P.P.S. I wish you hadn't waited until Nye died to come into your own and deliver your most significant achievements, but thank you anyway. That would probably be it. Yeah, but she is just so inspiring, in so many ways.
Yeah. Thank you to Heather Stuart, Chief Executive of the Fife Cultural Trust on Fife.
Books have been enchantment all my life. I can smell the dingy little library in Cowdenbeath High Street with its mouldy books that never had a new one. But I was fortunate because it only took twopence, 2 pennies in the tram to take me to Dunfermline. And Dunfermline, of course, was Andrew Carnegie's town with its magnificent library. I was also fortunate in having a grandfather and a grandmother and 4 aunts living there. And I used to collect up all their library books. And I used to go on the Saturday, and I went home feeling opulent, bloated with wealth. So that I can't remember a time when books, in my student days and my university days and ever since, haven't meant an enormous amount to me.